I've hit one in my life. Hi.
Hi.
Hello. Pre-pod. We've not even talked about pre-pod. I've only got 2 jobs.
What jobs?
I'm not telling you. You've got. If I only 2
One
jobs.
is that he's a host.
Hi.
Yeah, right. And
The other is to come up with the pre-pod.
Yeah. So
I've got a joke.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
We'll
No,
decide.
say it at the end.
We'll decide. No. You said that. What,
Doing
the
the joke at
post-pod?
the end.
The
No, at the
post-pod.
end of the pre-pod, because then he does the music. If I do the joke now, then it'll just...
Well, the
it'll be
joke is
tumbleweed and end.
the joke is the pre-pod.
What's the
Right,
joke?
but if I say it, there's no chat then.
No,
Now.
there's no chat. There's no chat because I've failed in one of my 2 jobs. So you are riding to the rescue.
All right.
And you're doing it.
So I'm doing one of your jobs.
Brilliant, thank you.
So what did Spartacus say when the lion ate his wife?
I don't know.
Nothing. He was gladiator.
Music.
Welcome to the Good Roundup. Good. We're a brand consultancy based in the United Kingdom. From time to time, myself, Stuart Steele, your host, will get together with Mr. Christopher Lumsden,
Hello.
whose birthday is tomorrow, and Ms. Julie Murdoch.
Hello. My
And
birthday is not tomorrow.
Her birthday is not tomorrow. I'll look for a small fee, I'll let you know when it is. And her national insurance number. And the name of her first dog, pet or something. And the street she first lived on in her school. Today, we're going to talk about... Brand stuff, because that's what we talk about. It's the kind of essence of the pod. And Chris is on a roll. I don't know if you know this, Julie, but Chris is on a roll. He
just can't stop
he
writing.
Can't stop writing.
He's a writing machine.
You know what he's like that. You know the fairy tale about the porridge pot that just keeps on porridge everywhere. You go, fuck, where's all this fucking porridge coming from? There's a fairy tale about the porridge pot, about hungry. There's a fairy tale about a porridge pot. I'll put it in the show notes. And basically they go, are you hungry? Aye, okay, right. There you are, there's a porridge pot, it's a magic porridge pot, and they don't know how to turn it off, and the whole village gets it. So it's like you were writing, we're just covered in porridge words. Word porridge.
Word porridge. We've evolved from word soup to word porridge.
But it's tasty, it's nourishing, and it's good for you.
Great.
There you are.
That was almost some pre-pod there, but we've just done it a bit later. He's came to him later in the day.
I know. I've only got 2 jobs. One of them is the post-pod, pre-pod.
So what are we talking about today?
Today is one of the articles that Chris has written, the machine, which is the writing machine. Chris Lumsden. It's all good. It's all thriller, no filler. And this time,
just go on with it?
It's a wee bit of filler. Fill up in the fella.
So
today we're going to talk about an article that Chris has written called "Brand Mistakes Made by B2B Tech Firms."
Yeah.
Right. So, but let's start off.
I know you have a problem with this title.
I don't have a problem with the title. I think it's an interesting.
Just starting by defining the title.
As you know,
we mean
love a definition. So when we're kind of talking about B2B tech firms, roughly what we're talking about.
I know. I suppose it's a phrase we're using a lot internally, isn't it? But I mean, you could say tech. You know, the fact is, over the last however many years, I don't know, decade,
more,
we've worked with a lot of firms who their products are relatively techy, whether that's printers or thermostats or software or whatever.
Yep.
And more often than not, they have a B2B angle.
Yeah.
So hence the umbrella.
So we're just all these companies we're kind of
I think so. And I think you know.
Yep.
And when you do more and more of the same thing for more and more of the same type of firms, you see recurring
themes
challenges
and patterns,
patterns that are matched, which I guess is a good thing, you know. And so I wrote some stuff about it, and I said, look, you know, I've seen a number of things that these firms seem to wrestle with. I'm not saying it's definitive or in any way exclusive to the sector.
Or exhaustive.
Yeah, there's probably more.
But I think you're right in that, because there's 4 things on this list.
Well, I'm saying it's 4 things a list.
Yes, let's not get right. Well, let's get into.
Oh yeah,
list.
well, it says the porridge man.
I know.
Let's not get sidetracked.
But I think it is fair to say that these are very common themes of challenge, or very common challenges that we see from a lot of the firms that we've worked with. I'm trying to think of one that hasn't wrestled with potentially all of these, if not, most of them. And I can't off the top of my head. So, yeah.
Great. So,
Hit me with your best shot.
1 to 4. So the first, I've written this. The first one is called features over benefits. So, and I think, quite often with these firms that we're working with, they've been founded by really brilliant people. And they're brilliant businesses, innovators and, but more often than not, they tend to come from a sort of engineering or techie background. Fair? And so they're amazing at identifying features, but perhaps less fluent at talking about, what these meaningful benefits are for that build for the customer. And I think a lot of the time we get involved in taking a comb through that stuff. You guys do that more than me, Stuart. You particularly talk about.
I think it's even beyond benefits. It's how's this making me money or saving me money? And
Absolutely.
and it's kind of forgotten about. It's going to look, we've got a widget that dries things.
Yeah.
You're going, okay. How's that going to make me money or save me money?
Yeah,
but it dries things.
Dries things fast.
And it is a really powerful force that in not just this space. I mean, I gave the example of a printer I tried to set up recently. I know.
Let's just thank the good Lord above that we were not there for that.
But the printer, it's got so many claims on the side of it about what it does. Over and above just printing things. I wish one of the bullets was prints things. But no, it does so many other things. And, and as an average guy, an average punter who's using it for average things, I just wanted to print stuff, namely, probably mostly returns labels. Yeah. And it's that point of,
not even boarding passes anymore. We've evolved past
we've
that.
evolved past that, haven't we?
I know.
So I think we see it as our task, and Stuart, you do this well, to help, define the value. You call it differentiated value, right?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is, and we've got one client in particular who just said, that he had dreams of me saying the word, so what? So you'll come out and go, so it'll dry fast. And I'll go, so what? It goes, well, it means that it'll dry faster. I'm going, so what?
It means your clothes will be drier quicker.
And I go, so what? He goes, well, it means you've got more time to do something else. You go, now we're into some interesting, because that time there's a value to that drying quicker as opposed to it'll do it quick, because that's where, and especially in the B2B space where you're kind of trying to save money or make money at every point, and so that is the kind of thing where, and if you frame that as the opener, and also there'll be a number of features, because it's your point on admittedly a B2C thing, but there's a number of features that you just get feature overload. You'll just get a list that will do this, it'll do this, do this. If you umbrella it going, this will save you time, and then there's 10 features that will save you time.
Easy to print things.
Yeah, that's
to save
one
you
thing.
time. Easy to set up.
Yeah.
But I think, I was just going to say again, and you kind of touched on it, I think a lot of the clients that we work with, like you say, from a very engineering type background, tend to be very product-led organisations. Product teams are, key to everything, I guess, from an innovation point of view, but also get, when you talk to product teams about marketing comms and how to talk about that, they will naturally default. They know so much about the product, the detail of the product, the technical aspects of the product, and also so much about competitors' products that we've quite often seen. You see clients get caught up in talking about, but ours does this and theirs doesn't do that, and it's but stripping all of that back to, like Stuart says, ultimately what's the value it's delivering, and what do customers care about? Does your customer care that it's got widget A over widget B? Do they even know that widget A and widget B exist? Because it's that kind of, it is definitely a common thing that we see clients getting kind of, particularly in this space, getting caught up in talking about how smart the product is without necessarily doing that through a customer.
And also there's a lot of kind of inbred knowledge, maybe, and that's within the organisation that know the difference, because the only people that really care about the competition set is the client, whereas the actual person who's coming to purchase this thing for the first time has no state of the art knowledge. So
they just want to
do stuff.
Quickly.
They just want to do things. So it's kind of then they'll go, well, why don't you do this, and why does it do that? And goes, and we've had it. And goes, well, they're saying that, but that isn't really what it does. And go, well, the customer doesn't know that. You know it because you're baked into.
Well, you know every single, every single thing about it.
Yeah, it does bleed into the whole other thing about the mindset of not having a consumer-focused mindset,
and I think the other challenge with this is that sometimes it does start off where the innovator does understand the value of what they're doing, but because the process of getting it from an idea to a finished product is so long, and involves so many people that the value does get lost. So it's actually going back to dig that out again, and sometimes that's what we're asked to do.
I think as well, and something we've talked a lot about is hierarchies, because we've, how many times we've had conversations saying there is a place for that information. That's not to say that the smarts, the intelligence that lives behind the product or the software, whatever it is, isn't important, but it's not important on your homepage or as a headline on your product page or whatever. It's understanding at what point your customer is or where they are in the funnel and where that information needs to live to be of value at the time. And
the other thing that I think is worth mentioning is that the reason this happens is that the person, and I know a couple of marketeers who have kind of written good customer-focused copy, and then it goes back to the product team, say you can't say that. And it's not that the thing's being changed, it's that you're not mentioning the thing we're proud of the most. And then it gets changed again, and
product-led rather than marketing-led,
and it becomes you meet the kind of frustrated marketeers going, I know that this is right, and they are right, but this is why it's got to be. It's not one. You need both. It's two sides of the same coin, and you need the marketeers to listen to the product people to sell, to put the content out there to sell to the customer. But that's not. You need both working hand in hand, and a respect for both of the skill sets. And sometimes that's not there.
That was quite a long discussion of features over benefits, number one.
Well, it touches on
Chris,
different things, doesn't it?
Chris, because it's gold.
Yep. All right, porridge man.
Next.
You're the porridge man.
Number 2. This is an oldie. No defined foundations. And by that I mean much of our work comes back to this through this focal point around brands that haven't staked out their foundations. And I think, many of these businesses are started by, as we said, people that are brilliant and just want to get on with it, and they create stuff, and businesses started in garages and stuff like that. It's amazing, and they grow quickly. But eventually, it reaches a point where it can't relate to itself, or it doesn't really know who it is. So it's fine until it's not. And I think that if you don't spend a bit of time and effort defining who you are and what you stand for, then you're going to end up in this kind of bland sea of sameness that we see, particularly in this sector. I think in the tech sector, there's a lot of kind of sea of sameness. I wrote an article about that as well, about
how many times did it say sea of sameness?
How much did it do?
3 or 4.
I like a lot of porridge.
I'd like you to
It's the
hear.
power of alliteration.
I get
Power
it.
of porridge.
I think what sometimes gets conflated with brand foundations that you're talking about, the vision, mission, values, is the story, the founder story.
Absolutely.
And so what happens is you go, well, what happened was there was a garage, right? There was a garage, and these two guys, right? They just made
Steve
this
Jobs.
thing. Yeah, Steve Jobs.
And Wozniacki.
All right, spoiler, right?
All right,
okay, I was going to tell the story.
Sorry.
And so you kind of get that, and that becomes the brand, and that becomes the story that is
But
passed
it's not
down.
the brand,
It's not, because you can't tell that story. That isn't a defining. That needs the essence of what that story is needs codified
articulated.
and put there. And so what you get is you kind of go, and also it doesn't spread well. It doesn't kind of move over to things like,
it's got a place.
yeah, of course it's got a place, and it can be very important in its thing. But you can't. How does that set your sales presentation? It'll maybe be the first couple of slides, but then how does that guide your product? It's kind of, the founder story isn't enough.
Yeah, how is that going to ultimately help you as a business to make strategic and operational decisions?
Correct.
Because what happens then is you get what we call these Buzz Lightyear statements, vision statements.
Working together for a better tomorrow today.
All of that stuff.
Today the garage, tomorrow skyscrapers.
Which sounds great and sounds aspirational.
It's great at a sales conference because somebody can stand up and go with a fist up and punching again.
We can all cheer, but then when it comes to what does that mean for our next product innovation, or how does that mean we tell people to behave?
I think you'll find what we're doing is building tomorrow's future today. That's what we said.
Completely meaningless. Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't mean anything to anyone that works in the place or outside of the place. So I do think this is such an important brand element part that transcends B2B tech firms. If any business doesn't get to a point where it does this, it'll reach a point where it'll struggle. I
think, and I totally agree with that. I think the reason it belongs here in this article, though, is because, and this is a slight, not to go off on a tangent, but we've talked about this before as well, about what the understanding of what brand is and the value that adds to a business at a leadership level, particularly within the B2B space.
Yes.
And the challenges that we've had with that over, in the past. And our job in terms of educating and, talking about brand in a way that is meaningful to those audiences. But I think my point being, I think when you talk about, if there's a lack of understanding of what we mean, we talk about brand strategy as business strategy and the value that it delivers and why these things are important, why these building blocks are important. It needs to go beyond. Often the remit of brand is seen as the logo and the color palette. So there's always a bit of tension and friction there if those kind of dots aren't joined in terms of why is that an important aspect? How is it going to help your business grow, your culture embed, whatever it is, your products in? So I think it's a
great point.
and that's partly our responsibility to help kind of join those dots as well, I think.
I mean, one of my favourite bits about my job, apart from this, obviously, 'cause
this is the best bit.
Just the bits you can remember.
Just a fucking joy.
Yeah.
Is when actually you kind of, first of all, it is when you kind of sit with a business and you do all the calls and you distill it and then you play it back to them and you just see the relief. I go, yeah, that's us. That's us. And that founder story is then
complementary to it.
And it's baked in as well to aspects of it, isn't it?
There's nothing they've not seen before, but it's just done in a way that they've not seen it before. And also with the product positioning as well, where suddenly they've had a lot of challenges trying to explain that to new people and everything else, and then it's there quite concisely, and you see the relief in people's faces when that's all been worked out. So those two things are the things I think that businesses that have worked without it for a long period of time do see the massive benefit of how it's going to help them move forward. So it's definitely the two my favourite bits of my job.
Good. And without getting into it, quite often you end up having to work with sort of half-baked stuff that exists, and one of the challenges for us is managing that and moving it into our format and our stylistic pattern that we know works while retaining some of the original content. That's quite a challenge.
It is, because I think, and a lot of the work, a lot of the conversations we have, particularly, most of the clients we work with are very established brands. So it's the reassurance around we're not throwing everything out and starting from scratch, that, we intentionally have a very simple pyramid, vision, mission, values framework, don't we? But it's very rarely a blank sheet of paper where, I don't think we've ever seen an example where a client has had something where there's nothing useful to work with. But it's just, maybe sometimes it's simplifying. More often than not, it's cutting away rather than adding on, isn't it? And just streamlining and simplifying. But yeah, it's definitely, it's the old evolution versus revolution thing, isn't it? That creates a bit of comfort.
Totes.
Good.
What's
So
next,
that's
Chris?
traditions. Number
Point
three
numero
3 is too much new, not enough old.
What are you talking about?
Tell you what, there's plenty old in this room.
Yeah.
You too. I'm the new.
You're the new. What I mean by that is that in this sector in particular, there's this kind of searing desire for what's next, the future and tech and
shiny.
new, shiny. And that's fine because technology pushes things forward, doesn't it? But I think the thing that we've seen a lot is when you stop and think about it, there are plenty of tech businesses in the B2B and B2B space that have been around for a long time. And in our world, in the brand world, being around for a long time is quite a good thing. Heritage is a good thing. Time served means lessons learned and experience gained. So. And that transfers to trust. So I think in a couple of times in our work in this space, we've helped turn that around, right, and turn the telescope around and say, look, it's not necessarily about what you're doing that's leading, that's different to what they're doing, that's in front. It's what you've done in the past that gives you a pedigree and a platform for trust. And I think that's overlooked all the time.
Yeah. Oh, Stuart looks like he disagrees.
That means he wants to disagree, but he's got nothing to disagree with.
I think this is where it's a compound thing, where I think you can talk about innovation and being new, and you can still have that edge, especially when you've kind of got your brand sorted out to go, look, this is part of our history. So I don't disagree at all. I think it is actually, I understand the need to be seen to be continually innovating and new and everything else, but you can absolutely base that on your experience over the last decades that this is just a continuing part of your story, and actually just build it up. So no, I do agree. It's just it's more. I'm more adding to it rather than taking away from it. So it's there.
Yeah, I think, and we've maybe talked to them before. We've got a client that we've worked with for a long time, and this actually wasn't, it's predominantly B2B, but the work that we were doing at the time was putting more of a kind of consumer lens on their comms. And they were a business that had been around for over 125 years, engineering led, absolutely an innovator and, a leader in their field. But looking around at the competition, again, tying back to the first point, looking around at competitors, they were so distracted by the kind of younger, more nimble, more agile entrants to the market that were much sexier in terms of branding and marketing and their comms, that they were became almost apologetic about the fact that they had 125 years doing this stuff, and completely missed the fact that in a space where, it was smart home, at the time, that was full of gimmickry and it was full of, trust issues and security issues. And it's like, as a brand leader in this space, there's real credibility and to say, you can trust us to put something in your house that isn't going to, break,
not work.
Exactly. Yeah, there you go. And I think that it's the balance between moving with the times and articulating the kind of and finding a way to talk about the brand and the product in a way that's relevant but also kind of without, Do
you think some of that's linked to the previous point about the fact that if they've not defined who they are and what they're about, that maybe they don't recognise that has value?
I think it's easier to sell new than it is to sell. But I mean, to tie it back to the B2B tech space, I think what you're looking at normally is high investment in a point where risk is to be minimised. And who are you going to go with? Are you going to go with a trusted supplier that's been around for a while, that have got a background in a heritage and support and everything else there? Or are you going to go for a new company that's kind of fresh and new off the block? Because how's that crypto stuff working out for you? You know what I mean? So I do think there is a kind of thing in the B2B tech space to kind of go, no, your innovations are important because that's what people will be buying, because that's where you're going to save money or make money. But also the kind of heritage and the fact that you've been there for a period of time and you've been through good times and bad, and you still survived is also important.
It's based on all experience, isn't it?
When you're about to spend 150 grand on a new dryer, that's what you're wanting to make sure the company is going to be there with you. So I think that old is key.
I think I agree with you, and I think that this, not to take us on to the topic of another pod, but that's where language becomes really, really important, because the thing that particular client, a lot of these clients are nervous about, is just appearing old and fuddy-duddy and a bit kind of irrelevant, as opposed to, but there's a way, and what that project involved was about articulating and communicating in a way that was much more consumer-facing, much more consumer-friendly, and just relevant to today's consumers. So rather than, it's not always it's not always kind of dragging out we've been around for 125 years, it's back to that value thing. It's like, well, so what? Who cares? Yeah. What does that mean? And like, that kind of the whole power of brand language thing, that's what helps kind of set apart and make a difference.
It's an interesting one, though.
It is, Chris. You wrote it. It's interesting.
Oh, yeah. Okay, and then number 4,
last but not least,
is the one I'm calling lazy naming conventions. And
these two almost had a fight about this before.
Yeah, we've talked about this before. So
the
example I gave, the back to that printer, which was called a Brother MCD 87 something X, which is essentially meaningless, to me, and that's in a B2B space. I think B2B is even worse.
No, that's in a B2C space.
Sorry, B2C, and I think B2B is even worse. I think that, as Jules mentioned before, that quite often what are product codes become names, and it's confusing, and it just makes the whole thing difficult to navigate. It makes the whole thing difficult for the consumer and customer. Sorry, and I feel that effort needs to be taken and made in creating simple, descriptive naming conventions for products that work. In the pieces, I've never seen another system that beats it. Not doing it is abdicating your responsibility to and outsourcing the pain to the consumer to say, this is your problem to work this out. There's a 15-digit code, so off you go. I think that, effort needs to be spent making, and it's what we do, isn't it? Helping clients develop these naming conventions that work, and to allow people to navigate portfolios that are confusing. I know, Stuart, you've got a couple of challenges around that, but I think generally you're on board with that. You agree with it.
I can see how. I mean, again, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I know nobody's gone out to go, we're going to make this confusing. I always start from that basis. I can see why it's got there, though. And if you're looking at the brother, they've probably got hundreds of SKUs with different plugs for different regions. And how does that? And there's an internal inventory SKU thing to deal with and an external one. And I can see, I don't necessarily agree that that's what they should be doing, but I can understand why it gets to, here's a brother MCD 873GX, because I know that the MCD means something, the 873 something, GX probably means Europe. I can understand why that.
Because it's obvious that, isn't it?
Well, that's not. But again,
I think that.
But I understand why it's got there. It's not. But the Europe doesn't mean anything to the consumer. I can see where it's there. And if you've got hundreds of those products and variants of those products, it is easier to get to that point. I'm not saying that easier makes it right.
No,
but I can understand. I can see where it gets to there. I can understand why it gets there.
But this is back to the same point we make about it, and a number of things. It's just it's something that makes sense for. It makes sense for the business, but it doesn't make sense to the customer. So I think, like you say, I can, and remember having the conversation a number of times about that's essentially it's a product. It's a code for a SKU that lives in a database somewhere that makes its way into the customer realm. Whereas, and I think. So I think I can agree with I agree with both.
Me, don't you, Jules?
No, well, I agree with Stuart in that I understand.
Fuck you.
No, in that I understand how there will always be a reason why it's got there, but I also agree it's lazy.
You also agree with who?
Yes, I do agree with you.
Hurrah!
I think though another point though, because and there's a couple of things that play in here. I think one is that again back to the point about product teams. Marketing's seen often as, that's the fun bit, product naming is often where, people like to get a little bit, have a little bit of fun with it, and before you know it, you've got, Printer Moon and Printer Saturn and Printer whatever,
go the other way into this
very abstract stuff. Kind of thing.
Yeah. And that's as bad.
Yeah.
I agree. That's as bad.
But I think, and the other point I was going to make on this, I think, again, is just really an acknowledgement that, it's very easy for us to sit here and talk about this. But I think, again, thinking about particularly the B2B space, particularly B2B tech, that how many times have we had these portfolio product naming conversations with companies that have grown predominantly through acquisition, where product portfolios through, not by design, have become extremely complex and overlap. So then you have, the process of deciding, what's getting... what's going to become a legacy product and essentially be moved out of the business, what needs renamed, what's coming in future. That it's not. I mean, there's no answers here. The point I'm making is just that it's not easy, and I recognise it's not easy to do, particularly where there's acquisitions involved.
But it's important to lean into that kind of pruning. We were talking about portfolio reviews yesterday, and I know this is about product development and supply chain consolidation and all that stuff, and there's stuff that smarter people than us have,
views on and
better opinions on, but more views on. But that McKinsey report basically was stating that, giving example after example of companies that consolidated their portfolios into a more simple, a 25% reduction in product. Options resulted in a 3% gross margin jump or something like that. It was a 3 net profit. Yeah. I think it nailed down to, but it basically said sell less, make more money. And sell fewer products, make more money. And I think if you use that as your North Star, inevitably it'll come back through a lens that says, how do we do this?
It's another topic.
It's a whole other topic.
I mean, I think even starting with a naming convention at the top level that at least gives you the entry point into it. So Dell, for example. They've got an XPX, Optiflex, and Spyron range, and it's created, right. Well, you can't slag them off for having a naming convention. Go, of course they've got a naming convention, but you can't have it both ways. So they've got an XPX, Optiflex, and Spyron. They have one's for there. Now underneath that, it gets into how you get into the 660 and the 690 and everything else. But at least what they have done is given you an entry point into because they've got hundreds of products. They're putting a naming convention around the type of work that you're doing, and you go, right, I am obviously a enterprise performance and collaboration kind of person. I'm looking for an Optiplex, and it narrows it down. Why are you laughing? You can't have it both. I don't understand how you can't.
No, I'm saying that I said that you can go the other way as well with these pseudo,
But the name's what? But the name's
the
name is just a.
Well, it depends. Yeah, are you making if either that I don't. Maybe I'm wrong, Stuart. But if Stuart's point is they're making it easier for people to come in and navigate their way into whichever is appropriate.
This isn't a place for joke. You've had your place for
This is
joke.
not fun.
You did at the beginning.
But I think as an extension of that point, though, I think the other point note that I had was just that is the future proofing aspect. So thinking about on day one, what might day 100 look like in terms of products, and so that whatever conventions are put in place, then that there is that kind of scope and remit to grow, because that's often where you end up with all these sort of sub what do you call them? Not divisions, whatever bits, descriptors, and little bits of kind of it's a bit of a patchwork because you start with one product, you end up with 100, and what the fuck do you call it when you get to 100?
Yeah,
and you get
that's the challenge.
And the legacy issue is a difficult one as well. And I'm not saying it's
killing
easy.
your babies.
It's difficult, but it's our job to raise these topics objectively and say we're customer focused. So
and I think we've seen it recently where what happens is there's a focus in one word that then becomes everything, and then it becomes confusing because it's up there, and then it's going, well, we've got a Vito 8 and a Vito 10, and then there's a Vito small, and then there's a Vito, and you kind of go, and then it just becomes, what's Vito?
It becomes meaningless. Renders it meaningless.
So it's kind of it's well, as we know across the board, naming full stop is the hardest part
it's
of
horrible.
our role.
It's a horrible thing.
If I've done my two favourite ones, the one at the bottom, the naming is always the hardest one, because Julie's right. You've got to kind of push it out and go, what does this look like in 100 days? How can we manage this? Does it, what might be right now might not be right in the when you look down the product map. So it is the hardest thing, but that doesn't excuse just kicking it into the long
Correct.
grass.
That's the point.
Yes.
That's the point. Good way to finish. So in summary, I think none of these are brand killers on their own, but it's as usual in our game, it's the incremental creeping kind of problems that grow if they're left to fester. Over a prolonged period.
Oh, I just kicked
then
it
ultimately what happens is values blade away, customers choose different products from competitors' businesses, and that's a problem. That's a big problem.
the game is a bogey.
Indeed. So, I think the biggest challenge, and you said something earlier, one of you did, about, is it our job to convince the company that, there's a problem? And I don't think that that is our job. It's once there's an acknowledgement that there is a problem from the brand owner, that there's a challenge and it's worth investigating a fix, then fine.
Our job can be hard enough.
Yeah, 100%. So there we are.
Chris, that was
Mr. Porridge Man.
You're the porridge man.
You are inspiration. You're an inspiration to us all.
You are an inspiration to us all.
To some of us.
Well, a couple of people.
A couple of folk.
My mum.
Oh, that's nice.
Are you really?
Nice.
Are you?
No,
Right.
okay. Thank you both. Thank you all. See you. Bye-bye.